Hello everyone, thank you for joining me in this video. The purpose of this video is to integrate the HOMEKIT API into an ESP module without the need of a Homebridge. So in this tutorial I'm going to be using the ESP-01, which has 1 megabyte of storage memory. So I want to make a disclaimer. I am by no means a programmer, a coder, any of that means. And I'm not a YouTuber either, so maybe this video will be a little boring. But this video is for those who came across the maximkulkin GitHub page and were confused as to what to do. So now, let's get started with the virtual machine. Okay, I'm going to be using the virtual box, and I already have one running that's set up, but this tutorial is for those who are clueless, like myself. So I'm going to set it up as Ubuntu. It doesn't really need that much memory, but because we are going to be running the server based. Here I'm going to use 100 gigabytes of dynamically allocated disk image. Other settings you might want to do is I'm going to go with 4 threads just so the installation is a little quicker, but it doesn't really need that much. Storage, this is the most important one. You want to make sure you get the 1604 server AMD 64 version. The reason I'm doing the 1604 even though the 18 is available is because those are some of the tutorials that I found online and I didn't want to not have it work on 18, so I'm using whatever they used, but they went a different route. They didn't use a HOMEKIT ESP demo. I'm going to disable the audio because there's absolutely no need, and the rest is good. Okay, so we're going to start out with start. I'm going to go pretty quick on this. You know, just installing a server on this machine. There's really only one really important step that we need to take. Okay, I'm going to call it Ubuntu. Here I'm going to use user. I suggest you guys do the same if you want to follow this tutorial step by step with copy and paste stuff. User. I'm going to go 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5 because this is not going to be a server that's going to be running all the time. And no, don't encrypt. One of the prompts was that the password was weak. This was just a time zone, but you just want to go put yes for use the weak password, or you can put a strong password. But other than that, I'm not going to be running this full time. I'm going to use entire disk because it's just a virtual disk anyways. And yes to write. Here, just enter. No automatic updates. Here is the important part I was talking about earlier. Make sure that you put space bars and put an asterisk next to open SSH server and press enter to continue. This, you're just gonna press yes for the grub bootloader and put continue. Once you get this login screen, you go ahead and put ACPI Shutdown. This will cause the machine to shut down. And here at the drop-down menu next to Start, you're going to want to go to Headless Start. What this does is run the server in the background, and this is like a snapshot of what's going on. When you notice this, you can go ahead and go to Settings, Network, Advanced, Port Forwarding, create a new rule, call that rule whatever you want, but I would go with SSH. The host port is 2222 and the guest port is 22. Press OK, OK, and that's it. So you want to have PuTTY, and I'm not going to explain where to get it, just go ahead and get it. And if you go to Global Tools, this is what this is the IP that VirtualBox is connected with to your computer. So if you go to your PuTTY and enter your host name as the IP you see here without any of the extra stuff, and the port would be 2222, go ahead and make sure that SSH is enabled, and optionally you can put here ESP, save it. So now if you double click this, you're going to get a warning, a security breach. You just put yes, and PuTTY window will come up. Now your user will be your user, and then password 12345. So you come to the first part of getting this all started. Now we're gonna go, I've set up a note with the steps here, and we've already done the first part. So if you were to go to algo.org Amaro2, you'll be prompted with these commands. We're going to copy that. Right click to paste. You don't have to do anything just by clicking right paste. It will paste whatever you just copied. And press enter. Since it's the first time using a sudo command, it will ask you for your password. And you're going to put capital Y. Okay, now we go back to the second command. This was just the Y to confirm this command. We're going to select this one, copy that, and paste it in here. This time it doesn't ask for a password because you've already entered your sudo command password. So now what you want to do, you can minimize this. You want to go to your machine here and put show. That way it brings up your terminal. This is pretty much your actual desktop, but without a desktop environment. Go user 1 2 3 4 5. Okay. All right. So what you want to do now is type ls USB, and this will show you all your attached USB ones. If you have your your ESP-01 programmer already attached by USB, you can right click on the USB symbol here, and this is what mine is called. But to have it permanently loaded every time that you start your server, you will right click your USB settings and add that USB to the list. So now if you type ls USB, you'll notice that you have your Kingchen electronics. But to know what it's called at your what it's addressed to, you want to run this command that I have this one highlighted. You want to run that here, but not on this one. That's why we use putty. So we can put putty here. Okay. So if I were to detach right now the USB programmer and then reattach it, it tells me here that it's attached to TTY USB 0. And I guess here we can put exit and just detach GUI so it can go back to just in the background, because we're using putty for this. You press Control C and it'll stop this command, the tail F, from running. This is kind of like a monitor, and because now we have what it's called. Okay. Now what we want to run is this command here, ls-al, and then the COM port for the device name that your programmer is called. We can notice here that it belongs to the dial-out group. So to have write access to it, we're going to add the user to it. So if we copy this command into here, we just added the user to group dial-out. And that's why I would like you to name yourself user, so that you could just copy and paste these commands. So this won't take effect until you exit out of your session, and then double click your session. So now the user is properly in the dial-out group. So there's an app that you don't really need. There's a program that you don't really need for this tutorial, but it's for you to monitor your RX and TX communication going back and forth. It's called Minicom. And what Minicom does is, if you have a different serial TTY adapter, it'll see what's happening within the TX and RX COM ports. So if you just tap Control A and then D, you have all your configurations for Minicom. P is the most important one, because here's you change your baud rate. If you can't seem to get readable information, the baud rate is probably set too high, and I would recommend setting it to C. I'm going to exit this, and now Control X to leave Minicom. That's just for extra control over what's happening. So now it's time to add folder. Let's go into that folder. All right. And what we're going to do now is, if you're following along in below, you're going to copy this repository. Oops, because I didn't copy it. There you go. Inside the project folder. So this is for the SDK, the ESP Open SDK. After that's done, you're gonna want to go inside of that folder. So cd ESP Open SDK, and you're gonna run the command make. So the tutorial that I saw told me that this would take around 30 to 45 minutes. I was able to do it in about 10 to 13 minutes. So we'll see here how long it takes. As you can see, it took about 12 minutes. And if you're following along, the next step would be to copy this. It's an echo to the profile so that it can boot up on start. If you see on the window here, it doesn't have the echo or the profile, but in order to not have to redirect that every time you start, I recommend doing the echo. But this is not the correct one. By highlighting that, I guess I must have selected it. Go back here. All right, enter. And now we go one folder back so we can just be in the project folder and enter this one. Now this next step, I didn't see in the tutorial, but I didn't want to risk not having this. So I also did an echo profile. To the ESP Open RTOS. Now, let me go back here. We're gonna finally start doing some maximkulkin stuff. we got to make sure we're in the projects folder. But this one doesn't even go here because we never went into the open ESP-RTOS directory. We can confirm that we're in the projects directory at the moment. So we can copy this one. And this is the maximkulkin GitHub. We're gonna go here. This will be installed in the projects folder. I didn't paste that, but here's that step I just took. Git clone, and then I installed all these things. Oops. So now we can go into that folder we just created by going into here. And we finally have arrived. We have finally arrived to this location right here. This is where I first landed, and I was super confused as to what to do. So I can just copy it from here, or, well, I guess I can copy it from there, or else I can copy it from my steps. So we copy this, paste it here, and that activates or initiates the submodules. So you're now in kind of a programming mode. And all this, except for this part, which I need to put into my tutorial. If you hear me typing in the background, it's because I'm writing this as I go, kind of. Okay. So if I were to type ls here, you can see that we have a sample Wi-Fi file here. If we type nano Wi-Fi sample, it brings us to this. And this is what you would enter as your Wi-Fi password. Well, this will be your SSID. I'm going to put this off screen, enter my credentials. Same for my password. Then I'm going to press Control O. And it's asked you to specify a file name. Here I can take off the .sample, and then it'll just be called Wi-Fi.h. So remember to take off the .sample when you're gonna Control O. And it's gonna ask you save file under different name. Yes. Now Control X to exit your nano, which is like a text editor. So if I press ls again, you see that now I have two files, Wi-Fi.h and Wi-Fi.h.sample. As long as you leave the .sample there, it's not going to mess with it. It's always going to look to the Wi-Fi.h. So if we go, show you what I'm doing so you don't get too bored. All right. Now if we go back here, all of this, including I think the environment variable pointing to it, I think this is all done. So after you install all of these, you're gonna want to exit your PuTTY terminal and go back into it. Log in. All right. So if we do echo $path, we see that we do have the SDK here. So if we go into the ESP HOMEKIT demo folder, oh no, first the project, sorry, and then the demo folder. We can now run these commands. Also this one, because the ESP runs on the DL mode. So now you should be able to also, don't forget to put what your device is attached as, your programmer, minus TTY USB 0. So now, since mine was already programmed, because I've been messing with it, I'm going to use the erase flash so that we can delete all the flash that was there before. So I'm in the ESP-HOMEKIT-DEMO folder, and I'm going to do first off, let's insert the ESP into it. That's the most important part. So we're going to insert the ESP in there. One thing I noticed is that if I insert the ESP just like this, it's not going to take. So I'm going to take it out and put it back in. So now I'm going to run this command, make C examples erase flash. You can see it's compiling. I'm going to move this so I can add the screenshot camera. It took 3.1 seconds to erase the entire flash. So now we want to flash. We want to flash the example LED. We're going to run this command. And another thing, after you erase the flash, you also want to remove it again and reinsert it because it hops out of programming mode. And just for you guys to know, I've already jumpered the ground in the GPIO 0. This needs to be done in order to program. So now we're going to go with flash, and it's compiling. If I would have ran this command first, it would have skipped this. It would have done this originally, and then if I would have ran the flash, it would have done that separately, not having to do this all over again. So now it's flashing the ESP. Okay, that's finished. I'm getting my phone here. Okay. And I'm gonna get this battery pack. Now if I go to add accessory, go don't have code. Actually, this is not gonna work yet because I forgot that this is in programming mode. So I'm gonna use this one, which is this is serial to TTY, and it doesn't have the program bridge to it, so let me just put the ground. Okay. Put that correct. Okay. Let's try that again. Okay. I don't know why that wasn't working, but so add accessory. Use that. Uncertified accessory. Add anyways. Adding sample LED. So sample LED added. Add this to my favorites. And now that is how you compile and run maximkulkin's API. One thing that I wanted to point out is that if you go to the example folder and you do the text editor here, I've tried different variations of this. Okay, so this should be renamed and this should match to this. This needs to be unique as well as this. I never changed this and it worked just fine, but if this or this is the same across any of your ESPs, you're gonna have issues. This can be the same, this doesn't matter. The only things that matter is that this has to change, or it has to be unique to each one. This has to match to whatever you put in here. And this has to be unique to each ESP as well. It can be anything random. You could put random serial number generator somewhere, or make this a small k, make this a small p. As long as they're unique, you're not going to have any issues. So thank you for joining me in this tutorial. I hope it helps somebody out. I still have so much questions myself. I would like to know how to make these ESPs into maybe like a door sensor, like a reed switch. Put a reed switch into it and have my phone recognize it as an open or close. Maybe somebody can send me links to the codes that I can use here. Code that I can use here. Because I have no idea. I'm not a coder, I'm not a programmer. I'm just kind of good at following directions. So someone would like to send me code that I can apply to this file so that I can make this ESP-01 into maybe like a reed switch, a door sensor. That would be great, because those were my intended use for these reed switches. I mean these ESP-01s. Well, thank you everyone, and feel free to leave me a comment. Thanks.